Jeff's shop, easily one of the most iconic locations in all of Doors. This area is known for being one of the only safe havens in the entirety of the game, as not only can you purchase helpful items here, but no harmful entities are capable of touching you. Practically everybody knows and loves Jeff's shop. Except me. Okay, I take that back. I do think this is a pretty cool location in the game, but I feel like a lot more could be done to bedazzle it. I'm not talking visually, of course. The content update made sure to make this place sparkle and shine with tons of fluorescent lights and decorations. No, I'm talking about bedazzling the characters seen here. You see, although the entities present in Jeff's shop, those being El Goblino, Bob, and Jeff, are perfectly fine as is, there's a ton of extra features they could have that don't require too much time and effort to implement that could make them shine even more. So, think of this video kind of like a wish list for Jeff's shop, as I'll be explaining ideas and concepts that I think should come to this location and the characters present there. All of which aren't necessary in the slightest, but just fun features which I think could go a long way. So with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so the first entity I want to touch up on is Jeff. Being the main face of this room, you'd expect this character to have a ton of depth, and although prior to the Floor 2 update they were somewhat one-dimensional, after the update they were given a ton more personality. Just in the Floor 2 update alone, Jeff was given an entirely overhauled model, as well as a whole bunch of special animations that play if certain events occur. In its current state, I think Jeff checks all the boxes of being an engaging and interesting entity, except one. Despite Jeff visually and functionally being very cool and unique, auditory-wise they are lacking. This character is silent as a mouse, which although isn't too big of an issue, I feel it could definitely be expanded upon. Now, given how there is already a character that speaks coherently in the same room as Jeff, that being El Goblino, I don't think it'd be fitting for Jeff to also speak coherently as well. Instead, I think that Jeff should be able to communicate through chirping and clicking sounds. Given how Jeff appears to be some sort of freak of nature, as confirmed by El Goblino, who states his true appearance is horrifying, I think they should make more animalistic sounds. And given how for the most part they are friendly to the player, I think subtle chirping sounds and clicking sounds would fit very well for this entity. They could even be tailored to the actions the entity is performing. For example, when Jeff receives a tip, they could play a higher-pitched joyful chirp, whereas messing with their radio will cause them to chirp in a deeper, more angry tone. Jeff's auditory possibilities aren't all I think could be expanded upon, but I also think it would be very cool if their enraged side was explored more. As you probably know, although Jeff is friendly most of the time, they can actually become angry at the player if you do certain actions, such as shine a light on them or mess with their radio. In one of El Goblino's dialogue lines, it is implied Jeff straight up kills players who try to rob him, and although this isn't currently a functionality that exists in-game, I think it'd be very cool if it did. For example, if you attempt to mess with Jeff's radio or shine a light on him multiple times, eventually he'll just stop being mad and actually attack you, taking away some of your health. This violent outburst could even instantly happen if you attempt to purchase an item with insufficient funds, and after being attacked multiple times, you'd just be killed by the entity. I feel like this functionality could also be good at adding actual gameplay affecting mechanics to Jeff, as although they have a ton of animations in terms of strictly gameplay, they don't really do anything. They just exist as something visually cool to look at. Moving on though, the next entity I want to touch up on is El Goblino. Currently, this character's only functionality is to speak directly to the player, revealing tips about the game as well as story elements. Now, this mechanic is perfectly fine the way it is, but I feel like a way to elevate it is with actual voice acting. As you may know, in the April Fool's 2024 event, a modifier was added which gave a ton of entities special voice lines whenever you encountered them. Now, although most of these voice lines were just silly jokes, El Goblino's, which were voiced by popular YouTuber ThinkNoodles, actually wasn't a joke at all. The voice lines were just the character's normal dialogue directly spoken out by ThinkNoodles, and according to the developers, this is actually how they believe El Goblino sounds like. When I first heard these voice lines, I was blown away by how well it seemed to fit in with the normal game as well as El Goblino himself. And even though they are a little outdated now, I wouldn't be opposed to the current dialogue system being reworked into one using actual voice acting, with the new voice lines from the recent updates included, of course. In fact, other games simply utilizing voice acting have shown just how much speaking words out directly instead of reading text can do to elevate the atmosphere of an area. For example, Sebastian from Pressure, who I'm sure you're all familiar with, is voice acted, and because of that, a lot more of their personality can shine through, which is something that wouldn't really be possible if their dialogue was just text written out. You can really tell in Pressure that Sebastian is a snarky and hateful character just from hearing his voice, and that goes a long way as it effortlessly builds a connection between the player and the character. Although El Goblino's dialogue clearly makes out his fun-loving and silly personality, actual official voice acting for the character could really sell that, and even if people don't like the character's voice, there could always be a toggle to switch between written and voice-acted dialogue. Lastly, though, the final entity I want to touch up on is Bob. Now, as you all probably know, Bob does absolutely nothing. That is the whole point of their character. They are meant to sit there and act as a silly joke, as El Goblino treats them as a real person, even though they very clearly aren't. Now, although the functionality is fine as is, I feel like there could be a way to elevate it without losing that core principle. As you all know, Doors is a horror game, and given how Bob is a literal rotten skeleton, I feel like there could be a way to enhance their character by making them more scary. What I was thinking is that whenever the player isn't directly looking at Bob, they'll ever so slightly and subtly move. This could be something as simple as a twitch of the finger or a small head adjustment, but just something you can see out of the corner of your eye, which makes you a little on edge. These small animations don't completely ruin the joke that Bob is the inanimate best friend of El Goblino, but it does add a little more personality to the character, because players will always be a little nervous around them as they can always make out slight movements from Bob but just never witness them directly happen in front of their eyes, only in their peripheral vision. Okay, so now that I've gone over all the major unnecessary yet enhancing changes I'd like to see come to the Jeff Shop entities, I now want to discuss some minor additions. For one, I absolutely hate the item selection of the Mines Jeff Shop. Every time you enter this room, Jeff always sells the exact same 5 items, and most of the time you can't even purchase anything as gold spawns are extremely infrequent. So I definitely think in addition to gold being more common to find overall in the mines, Jeff should have some variation in the items he sells. I want to see a crucifix, skeleton key, maybe even a candle or slice of bread, just anything besides the current permanent selection. Additionally, I also think it'd be very cool if the Jeff and El Goblino hiding animations return. Essentially, in the past, when Rush passed through Jeff's shop, El Goblino would hide behind a crate, and Jeff would close up shop, and I found this to be a very unique entity interaction. Unfortunately, this was removed due to technical limitations, but I think it would be very cool if it returned. Anyways, those were all of the feature concepts and ideas I had that I wish were added to Jeff's shop indoors. Again, I'd like to reiterate that I'm perfectly fine with how this area of the game works currently, and these are just features which I think would elevate the experience if they ever were added. So, with all of that being said, let me know in the comments what you think of these ideas, and thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoy.